Hi everybody, welcome back into the channel. Today I'm bringing you another real-time example. I don't know if I've done these yet. I know I've done some off-season stuff in Madden 20, but a real-time example from one of my active franchises on how I approach free agency. Now let me show you guys what team I am on the Bills. We started off at the end of the 2019 season. I went ahead and won the Super Bowl that year, taking the Bills on a miraculous playoff run and winning a nice Super Bowl. This year we lost in the AFC Championship game to a user who is the Steelers. And we're now approaching free agency number 2. And so I'm going to go in and show you guys my team and just tell you guys my approach to free agency. Maybe you guys can pick up on a couple things that will help you here and there. First things first, as always, I'm going to go in and evaluate my team, evaluate how they performed since last year. Maybe they got some upgrades and stuff like that, and that is definitely the case. So last year, Singletary and Josh Allen were both stars, so now they've become superstars, which means I'm looking at probably that's a locked-up position. I don't really need to do much at that position. I also brought in Kyle Allen, who developed decently well as a backup quarterback, and I'm comfortable with him as my backup. He's got good accuracies and stuff like that, so I don't got to fill in my backups there. And Jordan Howard also managed to get superstar last season as well through a dev upgrade when Singletary was injured. So I'm pretty locked up at the quarterback and halfback spots. I could use a backup halfback because I let TJ Yeldon walk. He wanted a decent-sized contract, and I just can't afford to pay that type of contract to a third running back, so that's where I'm at with that. In terms of my fullback, I'm solid with one really nice fullback that I drafted last year in the draft. Very good, got a couple upgrade points. At wide receiver, I'm a little bit weak because I ended up having to let John Ross go just to save cap space because he went down to about a 78 overall. I didn't even bother trying to trade him, so I just went with Brandon Cooks because I also have CeeDee Lamb and Sage Surratt on the roster, a guy that developed into a superstar who's definitely going to be either my slot or my number 2, and then I have Brandon Cooks who's a comfortable number 1 or number 2. So I'm just looking for some depth at the wide receiver spot, and like I said, I'm just going through right now and telling you guys what my needs are, and then showing you how I'll approach that. My O-line is solid all the way across. Obviously, these guys all have like +2 or +3 because of confidence or their morale. And so I am looking to potentially fill one offensive line spot if there's a good lineman there. Cody Ford is young, so I don't have to bother filling that position. I'm confident he'll become a very good player for me. Mitch Morse is getting up there in age at 29, but he's still a very high overall, very comfortable starter for me. Feliciano is the one that's a little bit of a question mark for me because he's 29, but he's only a 78 if you take away his morale. So I might need a replacement for him in the future. I might just draft one. Lyle Collins is definitely solid for me. It's still 28 years old, close to a 90 overall. I can't complain there. And Deion Dawkins is an 81. As a 27-year-old, he's a bit expensive for what I actually get out of him, but I can't complain. My O-line is pretty good. I might look for one player, maybe some backups. We'll see with that, but I could probably fill out that position with the draft. Now, at tight end, Dawson Knox got an upgrade from normal to star in the offseason, which is really nice, but he's still only a 76 overall, so I might be looking to add another tight end. I had to let go of my other tight end, so I only have 2 on the roster. I might be looking to add a tight end. Specifically, Dawson Knox is a decent tight end, but I'm just not sure at this point in his career that I can develop him into a high-caliber starting tight end. And most times I actually run 2 tight end sets, so I wouldn't mind having 2 high-caliber starting tight ends. I might pick up a guy that's in the mid-80s if there's one there, like Eric Ebron if he's there or something like that. I wouldn't be opposed to adding that position because that could help my offense tremendously. Now on defense, defensive-wise, we're really good across the defensive line. Last year we drafted Epineza. He got an upgrade to star. So I'm comfortable with him at that end spot. I'm playing Ed Oliver at the other end spot and Shaq Lawson at the D tackle with Michael Pierce. I have no questions across the D line. Phillips is a good backup D line. I moved Crosby from linebacker where he was playing to D line again. So I'm looking for a linebacker. If there's a linebacker there, I definitely want to add some linebacker help because I felt like that was an area of weakness last year. I want to add some speed, somebody that can cover at linebacker, and that might be a little bit difficult because Tremaine Edmonds is really good, but he can't do it all himself. Milano is decent. He's got good coverage stats, but he just doesn't play well. So I need to add another linebacker to help me out in the middle. My corners are decent, but I'm looking for another starter because I lost Pat P in the offseason, who I was able to get last offseason, and he was just older. I could consider bringing him back as a slot, but I really want, as the Bills' defense, to have a shutdown defense, and I'd like to get somebody even better across from Tre'Davious White to kind of supplement him. Don't get me wrong, Levi Wallace is nice, but I prefer him in the slot position on my defense. And then at safety, Teron Johnson led the league in interceptions. I have no plans to do anything with that position. And I like Tremont Smith at free safety, but I might also consider adding a free safety. Those are just my thoughts on the team so far. I'm also going to look at my kicker. My kicker's really good and young. My punter's good and young. So I don't have to do a lot in terms of adding those positions. So let's go ahead and just look at the free agents and see what's there. And see how we can improve the team. Now, the first thing that I will do is I'll kind of just scroll through and look at the top free agents. Most of them are going to be older. We got Richard Sherman. He could be a nice one-year deal for me that could really just solidify the defense if I'm trying to make a playoff push. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to adding Richard Sherman. Trent Williams could be a nice one-year deal, although I'm not necessarily looking to add another older lineman to my team. Chandler Jones, he plays linebacker, he plays DN, but he's not the type of linebacker that I'm looking for. And so what I'm going to start to do now that I'm looking at these things is I'm going to start to go out and branch out to the positions that I actually need. Will Fuller could be a nice pickup at receiver, but a little bit older. Patrick Peterson I could consider bringing back on a one-year deal. I could maybe bring Poyer back and play him at safety again. David Njoku could be a nice pickup. Takaris McKinley could be a decent pickup. We'll see with that. He's got 86 speed, so while he might not be a good cover player now, I could transition him to a linebacker, even though he is more of a pass rusher, obviously. But with 86 speed, that's pretty nice. I might consider bringing him in. Some good corners. Okay, so let's go ahead and branch out to the positions, and I'm just going to scroll through every single position and look through, because you never know, you might just find somebody that you want, even if you said you didn't need anybody at that position. I always make sure I go through every single position, and most of the time I'll honestly go through every single player. I won't do that here for you guys today, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of what I actually do in order to make sure I do my due diligence. So even though I said I was locked up at quarterback, it couldn't hurt to look at these quarterbacks and see what they want. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to adding a Cam Newton as my backup, my true backup, but the problem is someone else has a bid in on him. He wants $14 million, so I probably can't afford that. But you might be able to find somebody here lower down that you could add to your team that you'd like. Like, maybe I would consider bringing Ben Roethlisberger on a one-year deal, you know, just a proven older backup that I could bring in to help out in case Josh Allen got injured for some reason, because he didn't get injured last season. Chances are he'll get injured this season. That's a consideration. I might come back to that and put in a bid on somebody that's a little bit older like that. But let's move on to the next position. We said we were good at halfback in terms of starters. I could try to re-sign for a cheaper contract TJ Yeldon if I wanted to. Obviously, he wants 2 years, $5 million. I just thought that was too much. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go down to some of these depth guys and just see if there's somebody I like. Like, I don't know, Marshawn Lynch is a 74 overall. Let's just see what his stats are. He's slow, but he could be a decent, like, fullback for us, basically. That would be somebody I would certainly consider bringing in on, like, a $2 million deal. Maybe offer him a little bit less than what he's requesting. A couple of these other guys aren't very good. I could always draft a running back as well. So, not too concerned about that. We'll move on. Don't need a fullback. I'm good there. Wide receiver, we could use some help. I considered bringing in Stills last season, but I decided not to. So I'm not going to bring him in this season now that he's even a year older. Will Fuller could be a good pickup if we could bring him in on like a 3-year deal. That could be certainly a good option for us, but we're going to have to compete with the Ravens at a 98-point offer, so I don't know that that's worth it for a guy that I'm not totally sold on. He's a fast player, good agile player, decent receiver, but not totally sold that he'd be better than what we already have. So I'm going to continue to go down. Zay Jones could be a good one. Zay Jones, decently fast receiver, good catching, good route running stats. 26 years old. John Ross could obviously be a good one. I'm not going to pick him up, though. I would 100%, as soon as I see John Ross's name, I would 100%, if I was you guys, put in a bid on this guy and try and sign him. Just because of that speed differential, how good he can get in Madden. I'm personally not going to do it just because we have a rule in our leagues where I'm not allowed to you're not allowed to sign people that you've already like used in the past. So like if I've gotten him to be a really good superstar receiver in the past, I shouldn't do that again. So I'm going to put in a bid on Zay Jones to just mark him. I'm not actually going to put in a super high bid. I'm actually going to take that down just so I get an idea of how much money I actually have. I don't know that I'd be willing to pay him this much money, but I'm just putting in the bid to mark him later so I can come back to him and know what I want later on. A couple good other receivers. David Moore is a decent option. Not too much else here. I'll definitely do some more digging into some of these lower overall players later down the line. But let's go to tight end. Like I said, I would definitely consider putting in an offer on David Njoku, so I'm just going to mark him now because that's one of my highest interests at this point. Not totally sure I'm a fan of any of these other tight ends. Johnny Smith could be a good option because he's a lower overall, 87 speed, 80 catching, as opposed to, I believe, 86 speed, 82 catching, better run block. So we'll go David Njoku. I'm actually going to put in an offer on Johnny Smith as well, just so that I have them marked, and then I can compare them through my negotiations tab later on, and just see which one I actually want to bring into the team. So I think I have evaluated that pretty fairly. At O-line, I'm probably going to look to make a bid on one of these guys at Villanueva or Trent Williams. I just don't know that I want to do that as my first priority, so we're going to come back to that position. I'm not even going to bother to mark them. I'm looking, a lot of times you'll see players like this, and this is one of the recommendations that I want to make to you guys. You see players that are like in their late 20s that have star potential. Don't catch yourself overbidding on a guy like this, because yes, they're a mid to high 70s player. Yes, they have star, but they're going to max out at like an 80 for you, because the amount of XP that it takes to get this guy up to a higher overall is increased for this age and for this overall. So he's a 10,000 XP increase. So at best, you're going to get this guy up to like an 80 by the time he's done for you. So it might not be worth it. He can't really develop as much as you might think. So don't get fooled into overbidding on guys like Pat Elflein. Don't get me wrong, he's not a bad player. I would certainly try to bring him in. I just wouldn't overcommit to a player like that. Pouncey could be a good rotational lineman for me, but they're offering him a pretty hefty deal. Not much at right guard. Marcus Gilbert could be another good rotational player for me, and this is a guy that not a lot of people are putting offers in on, and for a 1-year, $3 million deal, or $5 million, whatever total it is, I'm definitely not opposed to bringing him in to help out the team. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, now we're going to look at the D-ends, D-line. John Simon, we ended up letting walk last season. He really didn't do much for us, so the theory of having rotational D-linemen that can come in and take the pressure off our starters just did not work out for us. Same thing with Trent Murphy, so I'm not even going to bother bringing in rotational D-linemen that could help me out in that way. I just don't think that it really works out the way that I thought it might, so I'm going to avoid that. I don't really need a D-tackle. A'Shawn Robinson could be a solid pickup for me, but I don't need one. What I really want to do is I really want to bid on Tack McKinley. And the reason being is that he could certainly play an end/linebacker type of role for me. And this is a guy that I'm really willing to bid high on, so I'm going to give him a big offer and bring him in as a starting role for my team. So for now, this is what I'm going to bid on him. Give him a full-blown, big money deal, and just see if I can bring him in. And that might change as people try to negotiate, but I'm going to look at the other linebackers as well, just to see if there might be somebody better. Tyus Bowser's actually not bad, being that he has 85 speed, but his zone coverage is 53, so I'm not getting anything better with him than what I would be with a converted D-end. I did want to bring back Malik Jefferson because he was on my team last year just as a depth rotational linebacker. Middle linebackers. Zach Cunningham's actually a pretty good option. Low speed, not very good zone coverage, so not as good as I thought. Alex Anzalone might be. 85 speed, 76 zone, so he's an option. I will potentially come back to him. On Ruisaur, Blake Martinez, nobody particularly interesting there. Nobody really interesting at right outside linebacker. Jordan Willis, maybe. A little bit older, though. Okay, let's go to corners. Now, like I said, I wanted to bring in another corner to help out this season. Most of these guys are older. I could certainly try and bring back Patrick Peterson on a lower money deal, but as you guys could see, he did decrease heavily in his ratings. He's down to 89 speed, so he can't be the biggest help to us. A guy like Garyon Conley could help, but another user who is the Rams is bidding heavily on him, so I'm not really worried about getting a guy like that. Sidney Jones could be very nice as he has star, and he's an 80 overall. So I'm going to put in a bid on him. And I need to come back, and what my big decision here is I need to determine whether I want to bring in Richard Sherman or not. Another 1-year deal, basically, because that's what I did with Pat Peterson last year. Is I brought him in on essentially a 1-year deal and hoped it would work out. It didn't work out the best, but that could really be worth it for me. Bring him in on a 1-year massive deal and just see what I could do. I think I'm going to come back to that and try and bid on that, but we'll see. Free safety-wise, there's no crazy good upgrades compared to what I already have. And so I'm going to stay away from these free safeties, but I will look at the strong safeties. Like I said, I could bring back Poyer on a 1-year deal, but I traded him away for a reason. I don't know why the Cowboys cut him. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at on the players. So now what I'll do at this point, once I've gone through and made bids, I'm going to go through my negotiations and compare everybody and see what I actually need, you know, who I really feel like I want to bring in at whatever positions, and then go from there. And this is the best way to do it, is put in your bids on all the players that you're interested in. So like I could put a mark bid on Richard Sherman, or however much money it allows me to put a bid in on for. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my negotiations, and then I'll go to that specific position, and I'll look and I'll see, you know, which of these players do I really want? Do I want a 33-year-old that's basically going to be around for 1 year? Or do I want to get in the guy that's 25 years old and could help me long term? You know what I mean? This guy's probably never going to get up to Richard Sherman type overall. And I might also be looking to draft a corner in the draft. So it might be better actually on my end to pick up a guy like Richard Sherman, bring him in for 1 year, and then whoever I draft in the draft is then ready and able to develop and take over his spot once he leaves next season. And so that would be kind of more of what my strategy would be there. I just have to make the decision of what I actually want to do there. I think that I'm pretty sure that I want to bring in Tack McKinley and play him at linebacker, or try to anyway. It's going to be up in the air with who I play at linebacker, but I do definitely want to bring him in because of his athleticism. And then I have to make a decision on whether I want to bring in an O lineman or not, or whether I would be better off drafting one. At this price point, I feel like Marcus Gilbert is a really good pickup just because his stats are very good. He's a 75 overall, and for about $5 million, that's pretty fair for that level of offensive lineman in this game. It's pretty hard to find that good of an offensive lineman for you. And then I'll need to make a decision between the tight ends. Do I want to bring in a guy that's a higher overall, or do I want to bring in a guy that's a little bit older that I could probably get for cheaper and still turn into a fairly effective tight end for me? That's definitely an option. At wide receiver, I'm just looking for some depth, and I could certainly take bids off of any one of these positions to help me sign on another position, because obviously I don't have the biggest cap number in the world. So that's my approach. My approach is now going to be, I'm going to go spend some time debating with myself which players are going to help out on my roster the most and which path I want to take forward, because keep in mind, I do have draft picks as I move forward. And so it might not be the best idea for me to go and, it might not be the best idea for me to try and spend that much money on a guy like Zay Jones, because I'm comfortable with my top 3 receivers here. It might be better for me to just pick somebody that's a true depth player, sign them to a really cheap deal, or draft a guy in like the 5th or 6th round. And so I might just go and take that bid off of that player and then use that money to spend on a different position that's going to help me out more. So that's my approach to the off season. Hopefully you guys can pick up some tips in some way on how I approach the off season. Obviously, it's just watching me do it for myself, and so I don't know how much you could really get from that, but I figured it was a good idea just to throw something different in there for you guys. If you did like the video, leave a like on the video, hit that button down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and leave a comment on what you guys would like to see next. I just threw this in here because it's a good thing to break up between videos. I'll definitely be back at you guys with more development tips, more hidden gems, and everything like that in the next few videos. So leave your ideas as well in the comment section, and I will get to your video ideas as well and help you guys out on whatever you need. I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys have a great night.